everyone, and welcome to the Creative Financing Podcast. I'm Nicole Kimanjian. I'm here with Cody Richard and the host of this show, Jeff Rappaport. This is episode 238, and today we're going to do a market update on the residential market. While listening to this episode, if you guys have questions, please head over to the Creative Financing Podcast Facebook group. If you're not part of the community, just search the Creative Financing Podcast in Facebook and ask to join. There will be a live session on the second Thursday of every month, so bring your questions. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can ask your questions in the comments below. And lastly, we want to thank you for subscribing, liking, and sharing this podcast with your friends.
So I thought we would bring back these market updates because people liked them, and things are changing. And we are toward the end of September, and we just had a pretty significant interest rate increase yesterday. And man, I did some research today to just try to determine what it would be to go get an owner occupied property right now, and it really ranges from like 6% to like 7%. Not quite sure where you would fall, and I know the whole the banking system is all about bait and switch, and putting out there one number, and then you go in and find out it's more like a half a point higher. So I thought today we would talk about what kinds of changes are we seeing, and we'll get everyone's perspective on it. And what do those changes really mean for investors? So, Nicole, why don't we start with you? I know that you are cold calling, and you are in Florida. You are in one of the meccas of investor activity. What are you seeing, or what are you feeling in terms of the market right now?
Well, there's definitely a lot more price reductions. Like I'll see a listing come up and then like even the following week it'll be reduced, and they are definitely sitting on the market a lot longer. And I do some calling on for sale by owners, but I just don't feel like their urgency yet. So I don't know that it's trickled down to like a hurting market where they're like, I just need to get rid of this. It's still like, I want to sell this so that I can get into something else. And then, in the Utah market, that no one is interested in selling. So at least no one I've talked to. And I don't necessarily keep track of like listings there. I'm mostly like cold calling and doing marketing out there. But I feel like that market maybe has shifted a little, but it's not, no one's in pain and like wanting to sell their property.
Well, I'll share something with you when it's my turn that might change your mind just a little bit on that. So,
okay.
All right, Cody, what about you? What are you seeing, and what markets are you working in, and how do they differ?
Yeah, so I do Utah, Idaho, and Kansas City. So I've seen a lot similar to what Nicole has mentioned: price reductions, properties on the market longer, and then there's still a group of people that just don't have the motivation to reduce those prices. But I've seen a lot more interest in owner financing, especially if people don't need all that money up front, because you can still offer a good price. So if it's listed at 450, Zillow says it's worth 450, nobody's going to give that for a cash offer. So they're more interested now in owner financing and what that can do for them. So I've seen a lot more people open to that ballpark.
So when you say that, you were talking to people at the height of the market, right? And still talking about owner finance. And I know this personally because we were working together, but you still had people that said yes. They may not have liked the offers once they got them, but they said that they were open to them. Are you seeing more opportunity that now that they're not only open to it, but now they might be like, hey, let's try to make this kind of thing work?
Yeah, because before there were, if it's worth 450, you've got four people with a bank financing offer that'll pay that or more. Whereas now the competition's a little bit less because interest rates are higher. So, like, okay, I have one other offer that's at 350. I'll look at your owner financing, and I've gotten more accepted by using owner financing lately because of that.
Yeah. And I would agree. Are you seeing that, you know, to me, Kansas City is a very good buyer's market. Utah, I would say not a good buyer's market. And Idaho, certainly overpriced in terms of a market. Are you seeing the same thing in all markets all across the board, or do you see differences in the different markets that you're working in?
I see a bit of difference. In the Kansas City market, I see a lot more opportunity for both the owner financing or owner occupant exit strategy as well as using a rental. Whereas in Utah, it's mainly only owner occupant
Yeah.
for people that don't want to drop their price just because the rental prices aren't good enough in Utah to justify what you're paying and that monthly payment. So it's much more opportunity in the Midwest kind of markets from what I've seen.
Any feedback on the Idaho market? It's
Similar
one
to
of the
Utah.
hottest markets, right?
Yeah.
When things were going great, it was on fire.
Yeah, similar to Utah, especially in the Treasure Valley area, which is like Boise.
Yeah.
Uh, but Idaho Falls, Pocatello, Twin Falls, the more tertiary markets are still have some opportunity for the rental side, but still more owner occupant.
Yeah, well, one of the things that I've seen, and we haven't done much in Utah or Idaho in probably the last year and a half, but that those tertiary markets that you were just talking about in Idaho were really good cash flowing markets a couple of years ago, and now they're probably very, very borderline good
For
rental
sure.
areas. And when I say borderline, hey, $1,400 might be, yeah, you're going to pay 250, 260 for. And as in Kansas City, you might pay 150, well,
Yep.
130. So maybe even a better deal than that. But definitely differences across different markets. But I think the general consensus is that things are sitting longer. Properties are not getting multiple bids and selling within a week. And I agree with your statement, Nicole, is that I think that there is still some people realize that there's some urgency, right? Where I don't know that I want to keep holding this and to see what's going to happen in the next few months because things are trending the wrong way, right? So interest rates are rising, which is putting pressure on these really high price properties. And for someone to buy it is going to have a significant payment and maybe a payment that they can't afford. So the more that those interest rates rise, the more prices are going to be forced to come down. So I do see some urgency. It's certainly not across the board, and we still have people that, for whatever reason, they think that they're going to get it. They're and I've still seen in the last month, I've seen people asking 50, 70, 100,000 more than really what their house is worth. That part hasn't 100% gone away. But I do agree that they are more open to creative financing strategies, and I think that you're going to see it even more. And uh, and really to touch on something that you said, Cody, is that so in markets that aren't good cash flowing markets like Utah and Idaho, and really a lot of the West Coast markets, and some of the East Coast markets for that matter, that the one way that we can actually make a property a good rental is by creating the right terms. And there may be some opportunity, because there's no way that at some point that the ridiculous prices that these properties have been selling for, they will not, right? Because rents are not continuing to rise at the rate that they were. We have an affordability issue in a lot of markets, and without that, now these properties are just overpriced, and so the only investors that are looking at buying are, one, holding strictly for appreciation, which would be a huge mistake right now, or two, like 1031 exchange, which if you were exchanging from a good property, I don't know why you'd want to exchange into a poor cash flowing property, but some do.
And to your one other thing, to your point, I feel like my conversation with sellers have already changed quite a bit over the last few months. So it went from, why would I do owner financing? I'll just list it myself or list it with a realtor and make above market value. And now one of the bigger objections I have is, I mean, I've already got such a low down payment. I've got a good situation. Why would I do it? So it's definitely different in the objection category. And I've had a lot more discussions of, I mean, who knows what's going to happen over the next few years? Interest rates will likely keep going up and prices will likely keep going down, but it's tough to say.
Yeah.
I
Well,
think
and
I've heard something about like in the beginning of next year or mid next year, like the interest rates might go back down, but I mean, who knows? Like Fed might pivot.
But I think what they're doing, and when I say they, the federal government, the Federal Reserve, that I think what they're trying to do is raise rates high enough to disrupt the inflation that we're dealing with. And then they're raising them to like give you that shock right away. And then they're kind of going up and down, to try to ease you into it now, with the idea that yes, maybe they will come back, but I don't think you're going to see 3% rates maybe again in your lifetime. I can't really predict that, but that was an anomaly, and we had it for a really long time. I think people have thought that that's the norm, and it is really not. So we may be stuck in that 4 to 7 range for a while, and maybe even higher, 4 to 8. But the good thing is that the higher those rates go, the more people will need to sell with creative finance. When rates were 13% and higher, that's what people did. That they sold on owner finance. It's like, could you imagine going out and I just got 13 on my interest rate and my payments like $2,000 for my $100,000 home, and yeah, that is not what people want to see, and that's when creative finance will really come into play. Is that if the rates continue to go up, but we haven't even seen distress yet, right? Which is potentially coming in terms of more defaults because payments are higher. We haven't talked about variable rate interest loans, which are certainly rising and rising probably at alarming rates.
Do you have an idea of how roughly, like, how many mortgages are variable rate?
I do not, but I do know that when that they were introducing more variable rate options, and people took them. Was it a large portion? Probably not, because interest rates were really low still. But as they were rising, I think people got involved in them. And I can tell you that back in 2005, 6, 7, they had what you could actually, it was called an option arm, and you could actually choose one of like 3, 4 options every month, You could pay like a 15-year mortgage, a 30-year mortgage, interest only, and something else. And I had a number of those types of loans. And but if they're tied, if they're variable and the rates are going up, I mean, your rate could easily be 8-9%. And that could be serious sticker shock. Your payment just keeps going up. But what we really haven't seen the distress yet. And people that were buying at the top of the market, if the market starts to fall, which I believe that it will, especially in these higher price markets where the affordability is not very good, that people will be underwater or will be left with little to no equity, and they will, if they wanted to sell, it would cost them money to sell. And that's where some of the urgency and distress will start coming into play. And those are all that's really the only way to get them sold, is to sell them on creative finance. So I see changes, and from the last time that we did this update, the changes have only continued, and we'll see where they go. But I think this gives us, as investors that understand creative financing, huge opportunity, and both to purchase and to sell, because there are plenty of people that are not able to qualify for a traditional loan. And I don't care if it's at 6% or 4%, they can't qualify. So if you can provide those kinds of properties to people, huge opportunity. All right, any last thoughts? We'll wrap this up.
No, it's always helpful to hear your thoughts on the current state of the market.
Well, I thank you both for your thoughts on the market. So, all right, we'll go out and create some terms.